Today in the EU. Can Meloni always get what she wants? As leaders convene for the second day of the European Council's meeting, we focus on Giorgia Meloni's latest chess moves. So far, the Italian Prime Minister has leveraged her exclusion from top jobs negotiations to reinforce her party's Eurosceptic narrative. But how did her strategy play out in Brussels? Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Giada Santana, and this is Today in the EU. Meloni's words of ire against the EU behind-the-scenes negotiations won applauses from the Italian Senate this week.
Perché prima di discutere chi debba fare cosa, andrebbe discusso cosa vogliamo fare e solo successivamente andrebbe scelta la persona migliore per concretizzare quelle indicazioni.
Before discussing who should do what, she said, we should discuss what we want to do, and only then we should decide on the best person to follow those guidelines. To discuss what Meloni really wants from the European Council's meeting and what she obtained, I'm joined in the studio by Rome correspondent Alessia Peretti. Hi, Alessia.
Hi, Giada. Thank you for having me.
During the last week, 6 lead negotiators coming from centrist parties worked out a proposal on how to allocate the most important posts in the European institutions, ultimately choosing names that already echoed in Brussels before the elections: von der Leyen, Costa, and Callas. Where was Meloni left in this?
Well, I think she wonders the same. She really wanted to have a voice at the table, and on Monday last week, after the event, she basically told that she was really crossed by the fact that the majority groups tried to have a deal without her, even though she was one of the leaders that was most strengthened after the European elections. On Wednesday, when she was talking to the Parliament and Senate before leaving for the European Council, she actually lashed out against the majority, because she said there is a fragile majority and they're not really listening to what European people have voted for.
Exactly. On Wednesday, Giorgia Meloni addressed the Italian Senate in preparation of yesterday and today's meeting. She had a lot to say about the discussion at the council. How has she justified not bringing home any top jobs?
Well, she basically said that there is a backroom logic in the European Union right now with the majority groups. And so she's playing the card of the victim of the other people that did something wrong, and she was the victim of it. And now, even though everybody's trying to conspire against her, like S&D doesn't want to have a deal with her, renew the same thing, she's basically playing this rhetoric. I have the votes, I have consensus. So I'm going to Europe and have, basically the voice of Italian people, but at the same time, like European people be heard.
The picture she's painting turned out to be quite compelling.
Exactly.
One of a leader of one of the most important EU countries, victim of Brussels power games. Why is she using this narrative?
Well, before she came into power, her rhetoric was really based on Euroscepticism. She was also against the euro like many, many years ago. So basically, she changed her mind, of course, after she became the prime minister. But it's like she's trying to fit into that again. And that's what I was trying to say earlier. She talked to Italian people, but at the same time, she was talking to European people, saying Europe is not listening to you. The people that are trying to find the new top jobs are not the results of the elections. So they already found the agreement even before the elections in June. She actually said that.
Right. It looks like she's creating a narrative that fits into her electorate's vision of Europe in a way, and fighting, therefore, a domestic fight. However, she is also the leader of the ECR, the third biggest group in the parliament. So what is she hoping to achieve with all this?
She hasn't really been working for ECR. She's been working more as, the head of Italy in the negotiations. The agreement is based on the leaders more than the groups. And at the same time, she was actually really clever in trying to expand the group and have more of a strength with, surpassing Renew Europe. She really had a head start because the majority is actually not the majority anymore. It's not like the top three groups. It's top two and Renew Europe. So I think she's tried to play those two games, but she's been focusing more on Italy more than the European group of ECR.
Right. At this point, it seems like Meloni will not have a say in deciding who will get the top jobs. However, she said that there are specific priorities she wants to take the lead on when it comes to the next mandate of the European Council. What are these priorities?
Well, of course, migration. She based basically the whole electoral campaign on that. And she's actually in Italy, she's saying that Europe is just following her lead. She said before, the whole point, the focus in the European Union was redistribution of migrants, but right now deals with third countries, to process migrations, like what Italy has done with Albania. And so she's just saying that she led the way with that and that now Europe is following.
What other priorities are there?
Actually, also the Green Deal. She's saying we need to bring common sense and pragmatism back to the Green Deal, because if we go on this path, we're ignoring the votes from the elections, because green parties had less consensus rather than, right-wing parties. And so she's just saying that we're not denying that the electric vehicles can be part of the solution for decarbonization, but at the same time she says that it makes no sense to impose a ban on producing diesel and petrol cars from 2035.
From what we understand, the Euractiv, Meloni is also looking at financial investments, right?
Yes, and she says it's actually crucial to speed up the path towards a common defense industrial policy. That's actually a key point that we weren't really expecting on that to be in her top priorities. And she really says it's a really important, it should be a strategic priority to, equip ourselves with a security and defense policy that is equal to Europe's role on the global stage.
However, how did their strategy play out at UCO last night?
Well, I mean, the package that she widely criticized has been approved, so that's not really a big win for her. The top priorities that Meloni wanted were not approved, so we'll see how the vice presidency and the commissioner role will play out if or when von der Leyen will be elected next month. However, the EU countries agreed to take steps forward a common defense project. That's what Meloni wanted as well. But still, she abstained on voting von der Leyen.
And the threat for von der Leyen is concrete.
There could be around 50 turncoats during the voting for von der Leyen. Fratelli d'Italia, Meloni's party, has 27 MEPs, and they could be crucial for that. We should also consider that now ECR is the third biggest group, and it's over 70 MEPs. So I think that's why her threat was actually real. And at the same time, she voted against Costa and Callas. I think she voted against Costa because he has a really light view on migration, while for Meloni it's a top priority. And she voted against Callas because Fratelli d'Italia was against voting for a top diplomat that was more focused on the Balkans rather than the Mediterranean.
Are there any precedents to this?
Yes, there are actually. Back in 2019, I think Germany abstained from voting for von der Leyen. 5 years before that, for Juncker, the United Kingdom and Hungary voted against.
Thank you, Alessia. I'm Giada Santana, and this was Euractiv's Today in the EU podcast. Visit Euractiv to stay on top of the latest news, sign up for our podcast newsletter, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Leave us a star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite streaming platform. It will really help us spread the word about our work. This episode was produced by Miriam Sanz de Tejada, Nicoletta Yonta, and me. Additional reporting by Nathan Kenes and Paul Mesed. As part of our commitment to accuracy, inclusion, and transparency, Euractiv is part of the Trust Project.